Welcome to the Biohacking Standards, your one-stop podcast where we talk about spirituality, health, and wellness, and all things new. Stick around as we delve deep into innovations to support a better you.
Ben Stewart is an award-winning filmmaker, researcher, writer, and speaker. He's best known for creating thought-provoking documentaries that explore a diverse set of topics spanning consciousness, human potential, media influence, health, and cultural transformation. Ben has produced and directed influential films including Kymatica, Esoteric Agenda, Psychedelica, Limitless, DMT Quest, and Awaken the Darkness. Through his work with Gaia and independent media projects, Ben has become recognized for translating complex topics into engaging visual narratives. His films challenge viewers to examine the nature of reality, personal freedom, perception, and humanity's evolving relationship with consciousness and the natural world. This is a great episode, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's welcome Ben Stewart to the show.
Hey there. Today's show is brought to you by Igniton. Imagine this. You walk into the meeting and the names come back. You finish a thought you just started. The grocery list stays in your head until you reach the store. The afternoon does not turn into a slow drift between tabs. Or you read a paragraph and you remember it. Someone tells you a number and you don't even have to write it down. The small things stop slipping through. That's ignicognition. Or the stiffness in the morning eases off. Your body recovers from a hard day faster than it used to. The background hum of feeling older quiets down. The inflammation markers that your doctor keeps bugging you about at your physical have moved in the right direction. Aging stops feeling like a one-way ratchet. That's longevity. What if your mornings suddenly became more vibrant and joyful? Excitement to begin the day replaced the, oh my God, it's time to get up already feeling? That's REM sleep. Or maybe you've got all this under control and you just want to look as good as you feel. No more eye puffiness, less dark circles, a more youthful and brighter look. That's Peptide Eye Serum. I'll be frank, Igniton isn't cheap, but man, does this stuff work. That's because they use quantum energy to make the ingredients work better. I know that sounds crazy, but I've been using this stuff for a while now, and I feel and look better than I ever have. It's the real deal. It turns out quantum isn't just for computers, but it also works on your body. Don't take my word for it. Check out their university studies published in peer-reviewed journals. You can find the studies and these products at igniton.com. And make sure to use code Ashley for 15% off without a subscription. That's igniton.com and code Ashley to save 15% without a subscription. Thank you.
Ben Stewart, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, man, this is a lot of fun. It's great to meet new people and have these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to meet you. I'm, admired your work with Gaia and outside of Gaia as well. And it's great to finally talk to you. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just diving in, before we get into your work, you mentioned just off camera that you've got 4 kids and a puppy going on. Tell us a little bit about your personal life. Are you and where you are? Are you in Nashville? Is that right?
Yeah, just south of Nashville, outside of Franklin, which is a really nice area. And so, so I'm outside of Nashville, got, 4 kids. I work from home. I do everything that I do. Just for the audience that may not know, I'm a documentary maker. It hasn't even launched yet. I actually probably should take the Gaia thing down, but I'm just going to let it slide. So I'm doing a podcast with Gaia called The Pulse. I got way too many projects that I said yes to over the past year and a half. So my life is pandemonium right now, but in a way, I as an artist, I also thrive that way.
Right.
It's just, as a father and as a husband, I sometimes lack because there's so much creativity and I'm always at work in my head, even if I'm home. So just navigating, those human things, we got to work for money. You got kids, that's a lot more money. But you still want to be present. So I work from home and my entire day from morning to night is a hodgepodge of who needs me.
Right. What kind of puppy do you have?
It's an Australian Shepherd, but it's a miniature one. So he'll get to like 20, 30 pounds. And my kids named him Ozzy. So I now call him Ozymandias or Ozzy Osbourne.
That's great. I'm a huge dog fan myself, so that's fantastic. But that's a lot of work, especially with the 4 kids. So
yeah,
hang in there.
Yep. We got no other
and
options, so I will.
I know the area fairly well. I'm from about an hour and a half north of Nashville in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. So not too far from there.
Okay. All right. Is that like straight shot up to Bowling Green, or you're
A little
east or
bit west of there,
west? Yeah.
up
Okay.
431 if you know the roads around that area.
I don't really. Actually, the only thing I really know about Kentucky, other than Bowling Green and a couple friends there, actually my band played there once back in the day, is that it only has one national park, but there were mummies. Now, not like Egyptian and wrapped mummies, but there were mummified bodies of potentially royalty found in a national park, in the one national park in Kentucky.
I didn't know that. That's
Well,
fascinating.
unless the YouTube page lied to me or hallucinated, that's what it says.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Maybe you should look into that. It might be a good story there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I found that I happened upon it because I'm just really interested in hearing alternative, not even alternative history. It's just history that's lesser known. And
Yeah.
that's the amount of cultures other than Native Americans that were found thousands of years ago in this country. Like on this land they called Turtle Island, and the trade, some of the civilizations that just kind of disappeared violently and all of a sudden advanced as well, metallurgy. So I started hearing all those things from Wayne May and other archaeologists, and I happened upon that in Kentucky and found out that that's the only national park apparently, and it was, these mummies were found in a cave somewhere, preserved.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what was going on this continent, centuries ago, right? I mean, it's the stories we've been told are definitely limiting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all of history in general is just a story that arrives at us,
Right.
even if it's written down. Most of us just listen to the interpretations of those stories.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, Plato and stuff, but we never having read Plato or Aristotle, and coming to find that, we just hear the stories of what their stories were. Atlantis, who knows? Graham Hancock, he's not a slouch, at least in terms of understanding history. And if a third of what he says should be taken seriously, that's monumental, a rewriting of history.
Yeah. My son and I were talking last night about, we were watching the NBA game and there was some ads on for the Odyssey, which is coming out. And,
Who's in that? I just heard about that.
I don't really know other than Matt Damon. That's the one he named. And, I think Charlize Theron is in that as well, he said, but
Is that a series?
he said it's a 3-hour movie.
Oh, I wonder if that's the Nolan brothers.
It's a lot to pack into a movie, but
Yeah.
it's, anyway, we got us talking about, what is myth, what's really history. And, I'm kind of the belief that a lot of this stuff that survived, if it's survived that length of time, it's probably more history than it is mythology.
Yeah, even if, see, we don't know if they culturally spoke differently then. Like, you speak in lore and, you see things and you just trust what the other is saying. And myth, to me, is encrypted history. Like, it can give a glimpse into maybe the physical actualized events that happened, but also a glimpse into the way they interpreted reality at that time.
Yeah, good point.
Myth is wild. There's economic myth, and it's moving to behavioral economics. That's a part of one of the films, is that mythology is still alive, and you wonder if these mega colossus corporations, multinational, especially the tech companies, may be looked at in the future as gods of Olympia or something like that. Like, why is it Tesla? What was Tesla? Oh, it's this huge organization. What's an organization? Oh, kind of like an organism. So it's like a creature. You don't know if our words would land short, on future generations. So that's the wild thing about myth.
Yeah, I love that thought process. I can already tell I could probably talk to you all day long. So we got a lot to pack in here.
Yeah, I'll try not to tangent.
No, it's good. As we mentioned, I kind of just want to go with the flow, but I do want to talk to you more, get into some of your films. I'm just curious, of all the things you've done, it's pretty diverse. What's your favorite? or do you have one?
So, I mean, if we're talking films specifically, or just all the things that I've done, because I used
All
to be a
content.
musician. I was a professional musician before I had my foray into film, which happened while I was in that group. Um, and performing music was a different kind of iteration of what I'm doing now with film. I've always had a passion for moving people with art, getting them to like viscerally feel something. And that's actually kind of what makes me what I believe to be a filmmaker that doesn't approach film the same way as other filmmakers. Is most filmmakers I've met, they have a thesis, they have an idea, and that idea has an anatomy to it, and they want to put that out into the world, so they find an artist or a filmmaker to put art to it and to make it more palatable, like to dress it up for people. Like, how do you make them sit down for an hour and a half and pay attention to your thesis? Oh, well, it's got to move, it's got to be paced. For me, I'm less of a guy with a thesis and an idea, and more of a guy that's driven to move people through art in unexpected ways. So I spent the gamut, or I spanned the gamut of like how to do that in film. I started out with even talking about conspiracies, and not for some love or devotion to conspiracy, or wanting to prove something to people. I just loved what it did to people to really wrestle with what is power and what have I been told and what should I believe? How could I have been lied to if I was lied to? But then towards the end of the film, give it like a twist ending Fight Club unexpected twist where it's all about how powerful a human being with thoughts, ideas, will, collective communal power, how powerful we are. So at the beginning, people feel a little uneasy and there's tension, and then you break it at some point into this empowering thing. It's different than just empowering people. It's first giving them a glimpse of what you may need to reassess, and then empowering. So for me, long story short, my favorite part of music and film and all those things is kind of like an experiment. How do I use audio and video, from sound to narration to, fast clips, long, slow, nature, AI, whatever it is? How do I use those to take people from A to Z on this journey where by the end they feel more at home? Whatever that
Mhm.
means to them, like they found a piece of themselves that had previously been lost because they allowed it. They allowed the feeling or something like that. That's usually how I approach it. So maybe that's my idea. Maybe that's my thesis, but I do so through the power of storytelling rather than having a specific idea I want to land with people.
Wow, very cool. So
I didn't even tell you what my favorite project is. I just kind of went off. Welcome to the Machine is a project I'm working on with Tim Pool right now about the impact of technology evolutionarily on human behavior. And then my all-time favorite is probably Kymatica, which came out in 2009. And that was a follow-up to my first film, where people were like, could you just give us more of like the deep psychological empowering thing? So I made a film called Kymatica, rapid succession right after the other one, and put it into a film festival. It won the film festival. And at that time I was super naive. I didn't know what I wanted to do with film. Um, I was just kind of like saying yes to whatever came. So people were asking me to do public speaking across the world. I said yes. I think I maybe did C plus or B minus job at it, because I never had any nerves about getting on stage talking to people or getting up on stage and singing in front of people. So my favorite part of it is really seeing the evolution of what happens when you keep saying yes to things that scare you a bit.
yeah, I love the nod to Pink Floyd with "Welcome to the Machine." Um,
One of my favorite bands of all time.
yeah, I think we all have gone through a phase or two. I keep coming back to it. I go through a Pink Floyd phase every 5 or 10 years and come back and go away, and it just holds the test of time pretty well. I wonder if you're from Kymatica. in terms of consciousness and your understanding of consciousness, what evolutions have you seen personally since you made that film? And do you still see consciousness as the frontier of human evolution?
Yeah. So evolutions, let me break this down into like what I hear the two questions. Like evolutions since Kymatica, I would imagine in me or maybe in the world.
Both is interesting to me.
Yeah. And do I still think consciousness is the frontier of human evolution? Yes. I just don't discount that some of that is in the exterior world also as our technology. So a lot of people are purists and they don't believe that technology belongs or is an extension of us. So there's this resistance that I sense to it. I'm not an idiot to the impact or the cost of the technology, but I see that as being part of it. But I think it's all consciousness. Um, and I have, like not 100% conviction in most of the things that I say. I'm pretty sure all things are conscious, whether you call proto-conscious or anything like that. But that's mainly because of the stories that have come to me. Um, the biggest evolutions that I've seen since Kymatica in me is it's kind of dynamic because back then I had the balls to just say whatever, to do whatever. And it's not that I don't now. It's just that I've gotten such feedback since then about the nuances. And that's basically like I never made a demo reel before Esoteric Agenda. And then I put out Kymatica less than 6 months later. And that means within a year, I put out 2 documentaries that went really viral. But I it was easiest to pay attention to the success and not I wasn't getting enough feedback from people like your soundtrack is too loud. You need to understand story structure a little bit better. How many acts can you possibly put in one film? Stuff like that. Like things that could have helped because like I can take a compliment, it's fine, but I would prefer to have a piece of advice or wisdom that I could, what does the audience actually think when they're not just saying, hey man, great job. So a lot of the evolutions that happened inside me was getting to know that actually I'm not doing it for compliments. I'm doing it for self-discovery. And also I started having a real allergic reaction to the blatant commodification of uh, of a person. So influencer economy. Everyone is coming to me telling me, dude, you need to promote this and get in front of the camera all the time. People want to know what you think. And I'm thinking like, I'm not an introvert, but I'm not an introvert. And like putting myself in front of a camera, oftentimes I'm like, this is just adding noise and I don't know why I'm saying it. So like, why am I going to say yes to these things that, feel like they're forced? So these are evolutions that I had where I really had to come to terms with, I want to feed my family of 6, 7 now with the dog. I want to feed them and I want a future. I want to retire one day. And so it kind of turned me into an adult. Well, Ben, you need to figure out how much of this self-promotion you want to do and how you would like to do it. So in many ways, I'll put it simply. I feel like I became more of like a well-rounded man rather than a young, ambitious young man. Because back then it wasn't for this, like, I need to find God or I need to find myself. I love art. And the next iteration of my art was Esoteric Agenda and Kymatica. The process of getting feedback from people basically helped guide me into actually, Ben, this can be what people call a spiritual path or a path to the knowledge of self. But it wasn't that desire that drove me into this path. It was really my love of art, my love of like seeing how when you put a song out there or perform a song or put a documentary out there or a poem, the way you word it and the way you execute what idea really has a deep psychological, emotional impact on people. And I've loved like tinkering with those dials. So that's the evolution in me. The evolution that I've seen in the world is that nothing monumental, according to the layperson, happened in 2012. And I was one of those guys beforehand where I was like, I don't know, guys, like this thing with the Schumann resonance in 2012 and like just, I don't know, but there's a lot of energy going into this date. So let's keep an open mind about it. I probably said a few more predictions than that. And then afterwards, there was CERN, there was a couple other things, and people were like, well, there wasn't this halcyon period. And I was like, I don't even know if that's what I was calling for. But a lot of the evolution in me, or that I saw in the outside world, is that some of the things that I thought about the world that I put in those films didn't fully pan out. I started to understand power a little bit more. I started to understand how power that can seemingly come to you all through your phone, through all these stories, can look like it's organized and communicating amongst itself, meaning cooperating, conspiratorial, when in fact, that's the subconscious working with incentives of macroeconomic drives and things like that. So I got a different perspective of the world, but some of those old ideas haven't gone away. So I would say how I've changed and how the world has changed since 2012 is I've come to dial in my perception and also not live in it's either this or that, but in probability fields. And it's just more fun that way, because before I was on a like endless hunt for truth, and that was so exhausting after a while. And also being around those people that are on an endless hunt for truth and nothing's good enough. We need to go more truthful, deeper, deeper. For me, I was like, I actually really like casual conversation, and not being on this tireless hunt for truth. So that's the evolutions that I could probably put in a nutshell.
No, that's great. It's interesting because I'm kind of in the same camp with you on 2012, and while there was no like discernible, cataclysmic change that happened, I do feel like the energetic changes have only accelerated since that time. Our world has, it's kind of gone in two different directions, and it keeps going faster and faster, right? I mean, at least personally, and the people that I try to surround myself with, spirituality has become far more open.
Mm.
If I could use that word, just in terms of having conversations with people, and also the darkness. You just look around at what's happening and the chaos that's happening too, and it seems like both of those trends, if that's not the right word, but both of those outcomes have escalated since that time. And I don't know if it's because of the energetic changes maybe that have happened, or I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, again, I almost debunked my first two films later on just to show that a filmmaker can undo some of his old ideas, just to see what that would do. When it comes to the 2012 thing, like, here's the way that I look at it now. Like, was I right? Was I wrong? Is not actually the question anymore. It's just how open am I to the reality that I can't quite comprehend yet and how things operate. And the 2012 thing is like, that came to me as a story. Okay, cool. The Maya, they were geolocated, time bound to a certain time of history. And there's this mystery about them. Mystery is always cool because the mind can play in those little gaps.
Yeah.
And there's this date. How, like, we should do something like that for future generations. Like, just leave a piece of art that actually means there's a date and it's arbitrary, just to see what they do with it. So I started thinking about that, like, but it still became a thing. Let's say that they actually never thought about 2012, the date actually, and we just misinterpreted the sundial, and we came up with this date. It's still kind of cool. We came up with this date that aligns with a procession, and everyone focused on it. Like, what's going to happen? Even the atheists and the purely analytical were, checking the news that day,
Right.
and like aware of what day it was. When you put that much conscious energy on something about it is cool. But all the acceleration that you're talking about, you could also then throw it under the camp of the fourth turning. Like, every 80 to 90 years, there's this saculum. It's the length of a long human life, meaning by the end of that period, most people who were alive during the previous turning are dead or can't speak anymore, or close to not having their full wits about them. So every 80 to 90 years, if you go back 80, 90 years, World War II, also the World War I, Great Depression era, less than 80 years before that was the Civil War. 80 years before that was the Revolutionary War. And if you want to go into European history, the Glorious Revolution was 80 years before that. Is that the explanation, or is the Mayan 25 close, let's just say 26,000 year period, the right story? And here's what I've come to, is that spirituality makes most sense when you at least know that you have a truth and an experience base of what's closest to you. And then the farther back you go in time, the more of a story and the more like telephone game that it turns into, and it becomes mythology. And so much of us were trying to answer these things that lie way out there on the periphery, when in fact, we haven't inquired into what we call mundane, but is actually the most glorious, video game, experience of going inward. The amazing thing about going inward and asking questions and sitting quietly is you can actually come up with more practical, actionable things than trying to go way out and but what about the people before Atlantis, right? And going so far out there to try and find meaning. And that's part of that endless pursuit that I was talking about before, is wait a minute, I don't need what's way out there, and I don't need all these answers, actually. I'm okay knowing that I don't know, but I'm curious, so it gives me the freedom to go wherever I want now. And I think that reflects in my films too. And so I have several films that are coming out really soon, and one of them is that Welcome to the Machine with Tim Pool, about the impact, the evolutionary impact of technology, its evolution alongside humans, and what that does to our posture with chairs and desks and all these things that we do to ourselves with our tools, like text neck and all that kind of stuff. Is kind of getting at what's happening to our world, because technology seems to be the thing that's accelerating the most. It's not the financial sector. It's, not even human behavior or human consciousness that's exploding off the chain, in my humble opinion, unless you look at these kids that are reading with blindfolds and stuff. I think it's technology that is accelerating so much. And if you look back at all those fourth turnings, every time an empire falls to the hands or the power of another empire, it's largely due to a technological advancement. So every time you get this new tool, humanity is well, let's go and take that, and it turns into this acceleration. I think that's also what we're feeling right now, is we've hit the bell curve of tech advancement, and now it's automating to a level that most people, it's getting to a point where people can't wrap their heads around it, not just won't take the time to. So that's what I'm seeing since 2012. Yeah, it's been accelerating. That's social media. That's almost around the time of the iPhone. A lot of things started picking up at that point. But do I know? I have no clue.
Yeah. I find it interesting. I've been reading recently, that what's throttling AI now is the economic reality, that it costs a lot of money, which I find very interesting, that it's going to, it's the fear mongering, it's going to take everybody's job. And some of that's no doubt going to happen. But now all of a sudden people are realizing, big companies are starting to throttle back and rehire people because they can't afford the AI, which is just, to me, mind blowing.
Yeah. It is a bottleneck. All the CapEx spend on Micron and Marvell and things along those lines, and NVIDIA, I think there will have an effect to our immediate near-term economy. Also, the thing with the Strait of Hormuz. But I think at the same time as tech and AI is throttling up, we are coming to the edge of our ability and to supply it with the resources it needs, because all compute needs energy. And so Elon and all the rest of them are trying to find, and that's why things like Sui and Solana in the DeFi space are trying to do one thing best, and that's the least amount of energy per compute in the fastest amount of time, because that's what all the physical AI, meaning robotics, is going to need. And like with like the Tesla cars and inference, that's the new thing, is inference. It's like, yeah, you want pre-training, you want really, really, really smart models, but you also want your car out on the road doing active inference with a lot of data, because it needs to do local inference. It doesn't have the time to send a message, come back and say, slam on the brakes. And so I think we're going to start demanding a lot more rare earths. I think we're going to see more multipolarity between the East and the West. Some resources and some people are going to be absolutely fine, and then the K-shaped economy will show that a lot of people will become unfine because they don't have assets during this time of inflation. So it's a confluence of things that's happening at the same time as the ramping up of AI. The thing that I feel like there's a hustle, like, not to get conspiratorial, but I feel like there is a monetary extraction through the promise that, like, these new anthropic models, as good as they are, they have to be like, it's too good, we can't release it to the public. What does that do? That gets, like, the early investors and the retail to put more money down. And it feels like there's an extraction underway. And to me, I feel like all of what we're seeing on the news, or most of what we're seeing on the news, doesn't reflect real wartime, because the East could cut off our manufacturing and we wouldn't have much weaponry to go forward, but they're not. We're just figuring out the details of this multipolarity, and AI is wanting to be used by both sides, the East and the West. And I'll end on this. When people are hearing about the build out of AI and saying it's taking so much water, it absolutely is. And even if you hear that it's a closed loop system, there's the IT side and there's the heat rejection side. And I don't know enough to actually go deep into it, but, like, it's demanding a lot of resources. And with that, there's going to need to be a lot more energy supply. And these things are going to basically be what runs smart cities, in my humble opinion. And smart cities are basically open air devices where everything has a sensor, everything is sharing data, it knows where you are, it can geofence you in. Your money once it all turns digital, which it pretty much is, your money can be frozen and you can't use it. Your full self-driving car can be turned off if you go past your geofenced location. These are things that I actually put in my very first film that are more prominent today. Like, I wish I could have explained them away, but the more I look at it, the more I'm realizing, like, no, this is instantiating itself. We're moving into a smart city future where I think large swaths of what we call America are going to be off access unless you have a security clearance or some kind of special economic zone. Like, you can go to the special economic zone. So that's what I think we're kind of headed towards. And even with the bottlenecks of AI, I don't think that's going to slow down. I think we're moving towards the smart city future.
Yeah. I hope you're wrong, but
I hope
shifting
I'm
gears.
wrong about it being dystopian.
Yeah.
Right? Because I
Yeah.
don't mind tech. I don't want to live in a city, but I don't mind the idea of there being more tech, as long as it has a kind of respect for resources. I believe EMFs will become more and more of a thing for people, and living inside of a device, I don't know what that does to your health. I just hope it's not dystopian, because unfortunately I don't think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I could be.
The benevolent smart city. How about that?
There you go.
Shifting gears a little bit. I want to talk about, what do you see? You've studied a lot about, spirituality and science in your work. I wonder, what do you see as the greatest overlap between the two?
I'm sorry, the overlap between spirituality and my work?
And
Or-
it's the greatest overlap between spirituality and science.
Ooh. So I like to immediately put things in a symbolic frame. Like, inside your mind, you have mechanisms that detect, based upon past experiences, a projection of what this experience might turn out to be. All that happening under the radar, you're just predicting all the time inside you. And then you're also at the same time simultaneously inside your, what you would call a womb of consciousness, you have feelings and also aspirations, things that you're aiming your awareness towards on a long time scale with lower priority or on an immediate time scale. That to me is science, and you could say spirituality operating inside you at the same exact time. They're two different tools that help you as a greater being aim better at what you wish to aim at. So science actually means to know, and it's like you can put formulas to it, but it's the way that you come to know. And the way that you come to know things may be slightly different or in a different orientation as the way that I come to know. Some of us, we need it in words. Some of us, we process amongst people. Other of us, we like doing it alone, not being looked at in the silence of our own, our own space. We all process different, and we all have a different overlap of what science and spirituality is for us. And I'll just end on this. I've always been really fascinated by the 4 pillars of society. As far back in time or across the globe as you can go, science, philosophy, art, and religion, SPAR. Science, philosophy, art, and religion have been a part of every single culture. It doesn't matter where you look, you're at least going to find remnants of those 4. And so there's even a statue in London, I believe, showing that these are the 4 pillars of society or culture. And so science, I believe, is light entering a prism. It's just raw data coming in, unprocessed. It's just your empirical experience. Philosophy is the basin or the anatomy of how you receive information. Art is kind of how you reflect it back out. And I think religion, the meaning is religare, or to bind, like Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi binding the bonsai tree back together, coming back into wholeness, not with split off parts. And so I think the reason why these are aspects of society that don't go away and can't go away is because they're aspects of human consciousness. So the best overlap, to come back to answering your question, between science and spirituality, or you could say religion, is understanding that there are 2 tools amongst, I think, a toolkit that help us know what to orient towards. And I'll break it down finally with, I do feel there's something of an algorithm inside of us, or at least I can speak to it in those terms. There's an ecstasy and a terror to surrender, right? Surrender. You can do whatever you want to me because you're more powerful. Surrender, like I surrender to your grace, to your love. And there's also an ecstasy and a terror to agency. Can I swear on this show?
Sure.
If I fuck up, then I'm the one to blame, nobody else. I can't pass off accountability. So, and if I succeed, I'll know I did it. I didn't need anyone's help. And I think the core algorithm of being a thinking, emoting, loving, conscious being is we need this, the clarity to see the things we can change, the serenity to surrender to the things we cannot change, and the wisdom to see the difference between the two. I think that's the algorithm. Science and spirituality, religion, art, they help us know self, because when we come into a moment of gnosis of self, which isn't like, oh, once you know it, you always know it. No, it's a state of being of, I know what I'm aiming at. I know why I'm here. I know me. And with that clarity, I know exactly what I'm aiming at now. So I'm not distracted by the fluff and all the shiny things. That to me is the best overlap. Everything you do with an article that you call science, like, oh, but I read about endogenous DMT, or I read the science around the COVID vaccine, or that's science through a story. and you can park it purely in the science bucket if you want, but science is how you, with your eyes, know also that you're not being deceived by a cleverly crafted story or, so I think that's the best overlap. Spirituality and science are not at odds with one another. We just happen to live amongst people that would like to believe that there's nothing real beyond what you can prove empirically with your senses, and others that simply know otherwise, even though they can't explain it to a rational person or an atheist.
Yeah. No, excellent. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I'm part of Gaia owns 2/3 of a company called Igniton, and I run the marketing organization for Igniton, and it's the world's first quantum charged supplement. And so we talk a lot about, and we have peer reviewed journals that show that it actually works better than the same ingredients that don't have the quantum charge. So there's something there that's happening. And so we focus a lot on longevity. I talk a lot about longevity and different modalities of alternative healing and all kinds of things in that regard on this podcast. And I wonder, you did the film DMT Quests.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people thinking about DMT and psychedelics for longevity purposes. Maybe share with our audience, what do you think's going on with DMT?
Wow. I'm working on DMT Quest 2 right now. You can watch the first one on YouTube. I can't give away, unfortunately, what's going to be revealed in this next film, but it's mind-boggling. And I'll give a hint. The findings in DMT Quest 1 were too modest. They're 4 times too modest. And that's all I'll say about it. But we produce DMT around the clock in our brains. For those who don't know, DMT is a hallucinogen. There are only a couple classic psychedelics which work on a serotonin receptor called the 5-HT2A receptor. And there's other things that are lumped in with psychedelics that aren't exactly psychedelics, such as cannabis, ketamine, Molly, things like MDMA. Those are not classical psychedelics. DMT, you would say, is the most classical psychedelic because it's ubiquitous throughout nature. You'll find it in phalaris grass. You'll find it in acacia trees. You'll find it in every single mammal studied, including humans. The thing is we, thanks to Nixon, we only have a little bit of historic data studying endogenous DMT. And there's not enough funding going into endogenous DMT, except for my friend John Chavez from DMT Quest. And he is funding most of the research that's out there right now, and it's incredible. And he's finding that Wim Hof breathing, so just a form of breathing that resembles Tumo breathing, Tibetan Tumo breathing, increases gamma by 400%. So gamma is a brain wave that is not super rare, but it's rarely seen because it's in peak concentration moments. So say you all of a sudden realize that there's a puma or a bear 15 yards from you. You're going to go into gamma because you need all your faculties to focus on the issue. Also, if you're on psychedelics or playing didgeridoo or doing Wim Hof breathing, you're going to go into gamma because something needs a kind of focus. And that kind of focus, I think, is also, some people may say it's Zen or whatever, but it has a spiritual underpinning to it, I guarantee. But when you take DMT, gamma spikes. When you do Wim Hof breathing, gamma spikes. When you do didgeridoo, when you're making love at peak states, gamma. When you are having an aha moment, lateral connections between this kind of thinking and this kind of thinking, and all of a sudden it shares useful information to lock in an aha moment, spike of gamma. And we don't even know how far gamma goes because there's too many artifacts in higher gamma. So we only allow into rigorous science smaller bandwidth of gamma. And beyond that, there's people like Rodrigo Montenegro in France who ran the Wim Hof DMT study to show that the deeper you go, the more adept you are at Wim Hof breathing, the higher into gamma you go. So I nerded out for a second. All that to say, we always, like you and I are on DMT right now. It's one of the most powerful psychedelics. If you inhale it, you get taken to a space that is so beyond our comprehension that when you come back, what the hell is one of the most common things that people say right after coming back. It's mind-boggling. And then 15 minutes later, you're not woozy and can't stand. You're back. You're 100% home. And that's because DMT is native inside you. You metabolize it very well, little to no toxicity whatsoever. So why are we producing the most powerful, wild psychedelic in our brain all the time, around the clock? It's in our cerebral spinal fluid. It's bathing our brain. It's in our gut as well, because we have neurons in our gut. So there is a reason. We just don't really know what that is, but we're getting close to knowing that it's being produced more so than some of the other classical neurotransmitters, meaning this is really important and we don't know what it's doing there. I think that's one of the most fascinating things. We have leading scientists looking at this, and the more they look at it, they're like, wow, there's actually more DMT at more times going through more areas of the brain than we originally thought. Because Strassman and Joe Rogan, they're all talking about the pineal gland. It's not even proven that the pineal gland makes it. It's the choroid plexus that produces cerebrospinal fluid. So there's something going on, and there's not enough funding. So that's what DMT Quest is about, is answering those questions most scientifically, as scientifically as we can get.
Well, there's a lot of things that are fascinating about it. One thing that's always on my mind with when I hear stories about DMT is the people who have the same experience. They come back and they say that they saw the same things, or interacted with the same beings, or they were in the same, setting as someone totally independent from them. Like, that is that suggestive of another realm that exists? That's another dimension that we're tapping into when we take DMT?
I can tell you what I know, and just for the audience, like I may speak like I really know some things sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an avid researcher, but I'm not an expert in these territories. But when we're talking about the subjective experience of DMT and the inhabited space, people come back saying they see elves, they see things that are part crystal and part made of light. They're seeing mantis beings, like praying mantis, large, ginormous, godlike beings with different demeanors. And there's a lot of overlap in what people are saying. So to answer your question, what is the space? We don't know, but here are some of the theories that are out there. Some of them are saying that there is a pre-made dimension that you can access thanks to this compound that, by the way, your brain makes. This compound can send you to the same territory of mind or experience, whatever that could be called, a dimension, a plane. And in that plane, there are thought forms. Like, we have this word egregores, and that is like when many people believe the same thing, like a kind of a ghost or a kind of a demon or something like that. Their conscious energy starts to create some kind of an entity like Santa Claus that lives beyond any one person. It would be hard to kill the idea of Santa Claus. You'd have to literally erase a bunch of minds or kill a bunch of people to erase that from human consciousness. So is it a domain where just interesting kinds of thought forms end up, and you can interact with those thought forms? Because there are also a lot of people that say, I've taken DMT a bunch of times and I've never seen those things. So why are some people blessed with that experience? Are those other people who are blessed with that experience simply suggestible, and they produced an idea that they read about from somebody else's, and they're just saying, yeah, I saw the same thing. It was this big dancing woman, and it may not have looked anything similar, but it had a resonant feel, and the person, so anyway, this phenomena of there possibly being a shared space, a shared domain. Some people say it's future AI, and that we are destined to become more technologically infused. And then there's this metaverse that we don't inhabit yet, but our thought forms do. There's other wild ideas. But at the end of the day, this question is so prominent that Chris Timmerman and people over at Imperial College London, Johns Hopkins University, independent groups, many of which I'm connected with, are doing extended state DMT, putting people under the influence of peak DMT, but continuous infusion on those Henry Boyle machines or whatever,
Wow.
continuous infusion of DMT next to other people under the same influence that have never met, actually not next to, in a different room, have never met before, to see if they can meet first in this domain and
Wow.
then meet in the personal domain and share notes. So let's just say scientific institutions are taking it seriously enough to spend dollars on trying to find out if there is a realness to this domain. So chalk this up to what we were talking about with 2012. Like, we're starting to explore new domains of science as well. We're starting to academically take serious things that we previously have not. And if you didn't catch my comment before, I don't know if DMT has anything to do with this, but have you seen the phenomena of kids with blindfolds reading?
Yes.
What do you
Yeah.
make of that? Do you make of that like just, hey, I don't know, I haven't looked at it, or it's probably fake, or I bet you it's real?
I always gravitate toward, I bet you it's real. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, that's my constitution is a believer. I generally think that these types of things, when they come forward, are coming from truth, and that there's something there that we just don't understand.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah. I
I-
mean, like, just to piggyback off that, I think that the reason academia has to push back and be super rigorous and not
of course.
just jump to a conclusion. So I think a lot of people get annoyed, especially in the New Age community. They get annoyed by science because they're like, "You're so slow moving. We figured this out ages ago." And science is like, "I heard the theory ages ago, but it's taken me a long time to put it to my standard, and that's science." So we have to appreciate that. And I do think there are people who are very academically minded that are, and I mean, DMT Quest is filled with these academic, very rigorous people that are like, but I'm still curious because I have taken DMT and this space is really wild and I do have questions and I don't think that I know everything. So there is something fascinating that's going on about human potential. It might have to do with DMT. Maybe DMT is just a part of a bigger thing. I think that's probably more the case. But, you know, Daniel Kish is a guy who at age 5 lost his eyesight, and his parents didn't baby him or pity him. They were just like, hey, you want to be like other kids and not be looked down on or as a special case? Just do what all the other kids are doing. But Dad, they're riding bikes and walking around. Well, you better figure out how to ride bikes and walk around. It encouraged him to try to ride bikes. He eventually figured it out. In that time, he also figured out he could make clicking noises and start to see his environment based on sonar.
Oh, wow.
And so he retrained his brain. That most people would be like, oh, well, you know, lucky for him. No, that means everyone can do it.
That's right.
It's like what Christ was saying. Everything
That's
I
right.
can do, you can do and more. Let me just be an example of what's possible. Daniel Kish, he's not some superhero. He's a guy with fears and, you know, drives and desires and all those things. He just figured out how to echolocate. So yes, kids are learning to read blindfold. I fully believe it. And I have personal friends who, you know, I haven't witnessed it in person except for one person at an event. But I hear from all over the world that kids are learning how to see blindfolded. What do you think the Monroe Institute was studying with the Department of the Army
Yeah.
back in the 80s or something like that? They were trying to think, like, they knew something was to this psychological, you know, kind of sci-fi paranormal power of the mind, power of intention and will. It's just very elusive. So rigorous academics are like, I'm going to choose to not believe until it's proven to me. And to me, I'm like, I like kind of dabbling with the new age because I get to play in the space. And if at the end of the day I'm completely wrong, I'm not going to feel bad if people are like, oh, you really thought that you were going to be able to? Yeah, I actually think that I still can if I really put my mind.
Life is more fun that way.
Yeah. Not trying to be perfect, not trying to even do it to impress you, but, can we play? Are we here to play, or are we here to prove ourselves to the archetypal daddy? I did all the things you told me to. I wasn't a bad boy. I don't think that's why we're here. I think the mistakes are important. I think the pain teaches us.
I love that you bring up, what Jesus said. The power of the kingdom of heaven resides within you, and you'll do greater things than I've done. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I think I believe that that's real. And I believe, it'd be amazing what we could do as a society if we didn't indoctrinate kids right into school, and everybody's got to work it's just the power systems, whether it's a conspiracy or not, the power systems that are in play keep us in this basic state without evolving into those things that Christ said we could do.
So what I would love to do a little thought experiment here. When you said the powers, how do you parse what that is? Because if I were to assume, I would assume that maybe you feel like those powers are not disconnected from us. They are an extension of us, but they may not be wholly identified as us or me. But, what do you think those powers are? And have you ever thought of, if there could be an intention of those powers, is there an intention?
I think it's like a bird that doesn't know it can fly. It's like it's that kind of, we just don't ever even think about it. I never thought about any of these things growing up as a child, and I was always, just watched my parents go to work. I went to school. I went to church, but I thought church was this mystical, these things maybe weren't really even real. It wasn't until, my late 20s where I started to really start to think like, hey, there's maybe something to this spirituality thing. And even in the last 10 years, since 2012, my own spirituality has gotten a lot more confident and evolved. So I think there's all kinds. I think I think we're limitless in a lot of ways to what we could do if we really were enabled to have the time to develop those skills.
Yeah, this is part of the thought experiment, because is it not a part of ourselves that allows the box to confine us?
Interesting.
Especially when we seek not what's beyond it. And also, when you said when we are enabled, and I would imagine empowered could be an interchangeable word there.
Right.
Where does that originate?
Yeah. In the soul. In the soul.
Yeah. And if we had to try and find it even in more practical layperson's terms, I'm wrestling with a lot of this in the film Welcome to the Machine, because what is the machine? It's an idea that embodies or encapsulates a bunch of things we all kind of colloquially agree upon, but we don't fully agree upon the boundary of what we call the machine. And what I'm wrestling with in this film, and when I say wrestling, it's because I don't have the answer, but I love diving into the territories of what you have to consider in order to answer the question, what is the machine? Is it out there? Are the powers that be that are confining us out there? Are they also in here? Are they only in here? And what is that thing that becomes the impetus? Where does it originate that causes us to, you know what? I'm going to die trying to see what's outside of this box. I'm going to do whatever I can. And so the whole thing, the Illuminati, the conspiracy, the machine that traps us, religion that originally was about Christ, but now is a conformity tool that understands behaviorism, just like science is a form of behaviorism, and all these things are machines. Like the family unit, they reward you, they punish you. There's negative rewards and positive rewards, and negative punishment, positive punishment, taking away attention, giving attention. All this is behaviorism, and it's all defining the boxes we're confined by, mind, body, and spirit. And so what is the machine? I think, and here's what I'm landing on, only when I do what Christ did, fully take full accountability for I am the entirety of the machine that is confining me. I can sense myself in the entirety of this machine. These powers that be are entirely me. And only when I orient myself like that can I see like the singular path. Like when, I don't know if you saw Infinity Wars or Endgame, I forget what it was, the Marvel Iron Man Thanos thing. But out
I
of
didn't.
millions of possible ways forward, there was only one possible future timeline that could lead to success. And obviously they found that one. You know, I think, to get back on point, what Christ within, because I believe Christ, the idea is always us, will always be us, and we take as much accountability for Christ consciousness as we wish to. We are wholly responsible. We have all the agency, but the agency is within this thing that we call our interior world, because I can't make you do anything, especially not through, a computer. But the whole thing comes down to that algorithm that I was saying. Like,
Yeah.
how much do I have agency over? What do I not have agency over? And what's the wisdom? And it's just what action, what choice, what yes, what no do I give on this path of life? That to me is also what defines story and myth. It's the character arc. It's the rising and falling of orgone or sexual energy inside of us. I think the machine, the powers that be, the Illuminati, all that stuff is a literal us, but only when we interiorly, psychologically, spiritually take accountability for all of that can we truly forgive and love unconditionally, especially those who need it most. Love when it's hard, not when it's easy. So that's kind of where I've come. That's the thought process that I'm kind of impregnating into this film of like, welcome to the machine. Yeah, who built it? Who's responsible? You want to complain about the machine? What
Yeah.
are you really complaining to in service of what? These are deep philosophical, unanswerable questions unless you choose the answer. And so that's what I'm trying to empower people with that film. And it's just nice that you kind of brought up the powers that be and the enabling and the empowering, because I'm like, where do those things originate? It's such a
That's
fascinating
excellent.
deep dive.
It's fascinating. I can't wait to see the movie. I mean, that's right up the alley, I think, of what's going on in my mind a lot right now. I was watching something last night. It was like scrolling through Twitter, and I, trying to kill some time. And I came across this David Icke clip, and love him or hate him, the guy's really interesting. And
I love him. I know him.
what he was talking about was the Disclosure Day movie, and he had just seen it, and he was giving his take on it. And talking about the Matrix and these basically there's this control system, and it resonated with me, honestly, because I see it and I'm thinking, yeah, all this stuff's true, but at the end of the day, we got to figure out how are we responsible for this, right? I mean, it's like we have to forgive, we have to love, that's the only way to rise above it. And it's physics. It's a higher vibration.
Yeah.
We've got to get to the higher vibration of forgiveness and love and bliss.
And authenticity. Yeah.
And authenticity, or we're never going to be able to get out of it. Right. I mean, it's not it's basically our fault.
Rene Girard wrote about scapegoat. What is the scapegoat? Like science, philosophy, art, and religion, I think the scapegoat represents the interior thing that exists for all of us of Satan. And he or Robert Breedlove bring it to the scapegoating is Satan, because what scapegoating is finding an exterior point of problem, and it's the boogeyman complex. We need to find an exterior boogeyman, annihilate it. That relieves all the psychic energy of people who are going nuts thinking that they're being disadvantaged by another who and another what. So you need this exterior scapegoat, and Christ, you could say, was a scapegoat of the time.
Yeah.
And that's what conspiracy is. And this is this is what I struggled with conspiracy. I loved using it as a way to move people from a thought that like, hey, you're being lied to, and there's this dark thing that you don't understand that you should probably look at and take seriously as possible. And then I'm going to empower you and leave you feeling good. But conspiracy, if you think how it is structured archetypally, because you know that like Shakespeare's templates are used over and over and over again in Hollywood, right? Like some say there is nothing outside of Shakespeare templates, meaning he figured out the cosmology and all the formulas at least fit within the work that he provided. And he might be Francis Bacon if you believe other kinds of conspiracies. But there's a template to conspiracy. The problem is out there, and this is news, by the way. Watch any news.
Yep.
And they give this kind of snooty attitude with this furrowed brow, and they have these lines just tattooed on their face, where the enemy is out there. You should be afraid of them because they're powerful, and I'm going to define them by the worst of them, meaning the bottom worst 2% of them, I'm going to make the entire lot of them look like that.
Right.
That's your enemy. And only we will tell you the truth. And it's the same with conspiracy theorists. Dude, you know we never landed on the moon. You know the earth is flat. You know that the Middle Ages were just, or the Dark Ages were just created by the Illuminati. And it's just like, every time, even with conspiracy theorists, I'm like, oh, there's a pattern here. This kind of elitist thing comes up. I know something more completely than you do. And dude, you need to get with the program, my program. This
wake up, right?
Yeah. And like, dude, you really believe that, you know, like, and it's just like, all these are stories to me. All of them are stories, but every story does something to your consciousness specifically. In neurocinema, they're starting to hook people up with EEGs, galvanic skin response, eye tracking in cohorts, male age 25 to 45. Watch Fight Club, watch Alfred Hitchcock films, and see what happens. And Alfred Hitchcock was the best. Everyone's brain waves were almost identical, no matter what cohort or demographic you're in. Everyone's eyes track exactly the same. Their heart rate, their galvanic skin response, very similar, meaning you are being put into a kind of a trance that moves your emotions predictably to an end state. Conspiracy is the same. The problem is out there. You're being lied to, induce fear. The problem is out there, and I have the solution, knowledge. The truth will set you free. That leaves people hanging. And so, like, I bring that back to the David Icke thing because he, like myself, like every conspiracy theorist, has used that pattern. The problem is out there. It's a them, a thing that you don't have to blame yourself for. It's out there. I'll lay the pictures and the evidence out for you. What does that do? That doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
That gives me the ability to scapegoat. It's not my fault I feel like this. It's not my fault of my economic. They keep printing money. They keep doing this to the environment. They. It's a way for you to say yes, to agree to the terms and service of scapegoating, not taking Christ consciousness, not accepting fully this is me.
And it doesn't mean
so
to me.
I just want to land on one last thing. We keep blaming other people for that decision, when in fact, my decisions in this moment may not stop the problems in the world, but it'll stop the scapegoating, which is me accepting even a sliver of Satan and not Christ.
Yeah.
If I had to put it in those terms. That's kind of where I've come lately, is all of my films, if you watch them, at the end, it's personal accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just going to say, I don't necessarily think he's wrong, or that conspiracy factualists, as I call them sometimes, I don't necessarily think that they're wrong. It's just that they're not evolving up to this next level of, okay, what are we going to do about it? Right? We got to be able to love it and forgive it, because otherwise we're going to be trapped below it. And it's just not adding any additional value to the conversation.
And you can't blame a conspiracy theorist for spitting a conspiracy theory, because it feels so right when you go through the logical train.
Yeah.
And, so when you said they don't have to be wrong, they might be right. A friend of mine at Gaia, he's a producer, his name's Sid. He said to his guru at one point, he said, Is it always the right thing to speak the truth to people? Because sometimes the truth hurts people. And the guru came back with, assuming you know what the truth is. Because if you understand spiral dynamics, and I really resonate with this, it means there's these levels of consciousness that once you get higher up, you can see that the lower levels of consciousness, they're not wrong. It's just they don't have the fidelity. They don't have the sharp enough camera, or like they don't have the right frame that is holistic enough to have right action. Because Buddha is quoted as saying, first you need right sight before you can have right action. Mm-hmm. And then after right action, I forget what it is, right wisdom, right knowing, or something along those lines. But David Icke could be right. All those conspiracy theorists, including myself, could be right. But if the framing is disempowering, that like you're pumping ideas through a framing, meaning I'm going to show you how you're being lied to, and then I'm going to leave you with the cliffhanger. All you got to do is wake up. So, I mean, in what way? These words are so nebulous. Wake up. What do you mean? What do I do? Like, give me a roadmap. But it's also beautiful because look at what that assumption comes from. What do I do? Tell me, outside world. Give me the facts, because I don't trust what I could come up with myself. It's a not taking full accountability thing. And that's why all my films, they don't get to that's wrong out there in the world. Even the worst of the worst, I don't know how to call it wrong because I know that my framing isn't complete yet. I'm not high enough on Claire Graves' spiral dynamics ladder. So that's why I have to think in probability fields with real close connection to humility in every moment, especially when people look at me like an authority. Like I could say something like, yeah, that sounds so right. Like, fuck the man. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted you to land on. I'm venting. Oh, I get it. When I vent, they don't know what else to do other than take my frequency and be the same. So in every breath with my cat, or I don't have a cat. Why did I say that? With my dog, with my kids. That's a future timeline.
Right.
Everything I do, even my attitude, it's like my wife's reading Cesar Millan, How to Teach Dogs and stuff like that. And it's like your dog can pick up on your energy. So when they do something wrong, energetically, they know just through a look or a change in your presence. And the same thing when you want them to know that's where you go to the bathroom. Yes, you don't have to say it out loud. They know if you give them any sign at all, they get it. So it's the same thing. You're shaping your kids. You're shaping your dog. You're shaping your lover. You're shaping the people at work who look up to you. You're shaping them by how you show up every day. You know, the story that you tell over months or years, you're shaping them. Man, how do you take responsibility for all that? Humility. Yeah. Humility. You're not at the top of the ladder yet, so just be humble. Admit it when you're wrong. Admit it when you don't know. Laugh it off. Laugh with them when they disagree with your framing. Whatever.
Judge not, lest ye be judged.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, huh? Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I was going to ask you kind of to wrap up, give us one insight about consciousness that could change people's lives. I think you just did, unless there's anything else you want to add. But I think that might be.
Yeah, I think I covered it. You know, I mean, just know that you're always operating. It's June 11th at 11:11 my time right now.
There you go.
Just figured I have to say that. Just know that you do have agency, even if it feels like, don't be so convinced by your ideas of what's within your power and what's outside your power. Don't be so convinced about the ideas. Actively challenge them. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I really appreciate meeting you, Ben. I've enjoyed it immensely. I can't wait to see Welcome to the Machine, and I'm going to go back and watch some of your other stuff again because I've got a whole new lens now. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and, you know, great questions, great flow.
Yeah. Hang on one second as we wrap. But Ben Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Hey there. Today's show is brought to you by Igniton. Imagine this. You walk into the meeting and the names come back. You finish a thought you just started. The grocery list stays in your head until you reach the store. The afternoon does not turn into a slow drift between tabs. Or you read a paragraph and you remember it. Someone tells you a number and you don't even have to write it down. The small things stop slipping through. That's ignicognition. Or the stiffness in the morning eases off. Your body recovers from a hard day faster than it used to. The background hum of feeling older quiets down. The inflammation markers that your doctor keeps bugging you about at your physical have moved in the right direction. Aging stops feeling like a one-way ratchet. That's longevity. What if your mornings suddenly became more vibrant and joyful? Excitement to begin the day replaced the, oh my God, it's time to get up already feeling? That's REM sleep. Or maybe you've got all this under control and you just want to look as good as you feel. No more eye puffiness, less dark circles, a more youthful and brighter look. That's peptide eye serum. I'll be frank, Igniton isn't cheap, but man, does this stuff work. That's because they use quantum energy to make the ingredients work better. I know that sounds crazy, but I've been using this stuff for a while now, and I feel and look better than I ever have. It's the real deal. It turns out quantum isn't just for computers, but it also works on your body. Don't take my word for it. Check out their university studies published in peer-reviewed journals. You can find the studies and these products at igniton.com. And make sure to use code ASHLEY for 15% off without a subscription. That's igniton.com and code ASHLEY to save 15% without a subscription. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Biohacking Standards, the foundations and fundamentals for a better you.